oh, this isn't for me. This isn't for someone like me. That's for everyone else. I still didn't go. I completely opted out. I didn't go to one. And I just closed the door on that even being an opportunity for me. But financially, it could never be enough to fill that. You could have paid me double what I was earning and it wouldn't have been enough to fill the place that I was coming from. Working hard means being compliant to someone else's system a lot in this country.
Hi and welcome to Accelerating Your Wealth with your host, myself, Rebecca Robertson. I'm an independent financial advisor and wealth coach. I'm the director of Evolution Financial Planning, who is also our sponsor for today's show. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share and review this episode. With your help, we'll reach more people who can benefit from the show. Are you enjoying the shows? If you are and there's more you want to listen to, then check out our quiz. You'll find the link below. You can fill out these questions and it will basically tell you what area of your finances you should focus on. So it might be business, it might be you're getting divorced, it might be investing. There's about 9 categories. And what it will give you is a playlist to the relevant categories of all the shows we've done that apply to that area and that subject. So what it allows you to do is super fast learn about the subject that you need to know super quick without having to scroll through about over 130 episodes currently. So I hope you find that helpful and do let us know your feedback leave us a review via your preferred platform. Thanks. Hi and welcome to today's show, and we're going to be talking about how you measure your self-worth. It's a question, right? How do you measure your self-worth? How are you reflective on yourself as to how money is reflecting back on you? Because it is a mirror. The money that we have in our bank, the money that we have in our house, the income that we earn is all a reflection of our self-worth and what we believe we are worth. Now, is that to be true or not? Does that really matter? We're going to be digging into all of that today. And today I'm joined by Rose. Welcome, Rose.
Thank you.
Rose Latham. Is that the correct pronunciation?
Yeah, that's
okay,
right.
Good. A life and leadership coach for CEOs and MDs who want to lead more strategically without carrying the business alone, but understanding who you actually are and where your experience life comes from. Together will reshape your leadership identity. The result is responsibility flows differently through the organisation, team ownership expands, and leaders are more available to work at home. Available at work and home. That's better. I got there.
Perfect.
So welcome. Thanks for joining us today. And I've got like pages of notes of the things to talk through. And I think what's going to be interesting about this story is about your own story about self-worth, and what I want people to listen into is there any reflections that they can hear from that and can make them think, oh, that's me, oh, I recognise that. And my goal is for them people to maybe shift some of those unconscious bias they have about themselves and maybe understand that they're worth more than what they realise. So you went to Oxford.
Yeah, I did.
But you came from what you would class as middle class.
Yeah.
So talk to me about your childhood and how money represented in your childhood.
So I grew up and was in a village in Wiltshire, and we were definitely known locally as the posh family because we had a detached house in the village and there was a lot of farming community around us and a real mixture of wealth. But I have a real memory that I've realised recently of like some kids doing trick-or-treating round our way, and me and my sister listening out in the garden, was kind of desperate for these kids to come to us because we'd sort of decorated around the front of the house. And we overheard them saying, oh no, we can't go there because my mum says they're too posh. And the kids kept walking past, so no one ever came to our house, like of that group. And, you know, small village, there weren't that many people around anyway. But that was it was like one of a few little pointers of like, oh yeah, so this money thing differentiates us. And you know, we did have money. Like my parents worked, my dad owned his own business. He loved cars. So we had like a Porsche on the drive, do you know what, we lived in quite a big house, so there were like signs that there was money around, and we had holidays. So yeah, it was a very middle class upbringing.
How did that affect you? Like, what do you think that message that sent you, that you were the posh kid?
I think, I don't really know that it was like I guess like in sort of, if I could look at it like positive and negative, but the story I took away from it was like, oh, this is a marker of difference. That was just the main thing. It's like, oh, people see this and it means something to people. Whereas I always have been brought up, you get on with everyone, you treat people how you want to be treated yourself. And maybe that's a privilege, but I didn't know that then. But I just saw that it really mattered to other people. That's what I noticed. And
then you went to Oxford.
Right. So I did go to a grammar school. So we went through the grammar school system, but I did it in a time when everyone just did the 11 plus. It was just the exam you did, you turned 10 or 11, everyone does it. Some kids go to this school and every other kid goes to comp.
The whole sort of tutoring and
none of that was going on.
Yeah.
None of that. It was all just like it's just the normal thing, normal in inverted commas. And then, I did really well in my GCSEs. And when I got to A level, this wasn't on my radar. My older sister had gone to university and she was the first in my family. Neither of my parents did. And I remember a teacher taking me to side and saying, you should consider going to Oxford. And I was like, what? That was something that like other people did. And
did your sister go to Oxford?
No, she did apply to Cambridge actually, but she didn't get in.
Right.
So I guess it had been on my family's radar, but we hadn't talked about it internally. And I guess maybe the school had suggested it back then.
Yeah.
7 years between us, so it's kind of a different generation. So and then I applied and I did get in. So I then
what have you got to get in your A-levels and GCSEs to get into Oxford?
Well, these days, so the grading system's changed, but I can talk about it in both. But if we talk in like old school grades, it was A's and A stars. Right. That's what I got in my GCSEs. And then at A-levels, I was given an offer for 2 A's and a B, and I got 2 A's and a C. Okay. And I was accepted in on that. And nowadays, I used to cut many years later, I was head of sixth form. The grades for students to get in now is same thing. It's like 8s and 9s, which is A's and A stars. Yeah. And at A level, you're looking at a lot of students do 4 A levels now at like the higher level. Like the competition for the Russell Group universities is quite strong. Right. So you're looking at 3 A's or A stars predicted to get in. Like the competition is much more fierce, I would say, than it used to be when I applied.
Slight slide step.
Go ahead.
But being the fact that you've been a head teacher, like you were going to be a head teacher and you've worked in it's like education. Do you think it's all worth it? Which thing, part? Like the whole grammar school, the whole A levels, the whole Oxford University, bearing in mind what's coming with AI.
It's a really challenging question.
I know, and I'm putting you on the spot. I didn't prep you for this.
No, being a product of an education system, it has opened doors for me. However, would those same doors be being opened now? Here's what So let me be honest. I live in the same area where I grew up, and my daughter's just gone through the 11 plus system, and she hasn't passed, so she's not going to be going to the grammar school. Yeah, and I'm looking at education, and it's something that I can get very passionate about. And I'm looking at what it is and what's changed. And what we used to talk to the sixth formers around specifically was, I don't know if it is worth it now for the amount of debt that you get at the end of it. Yeah. And it is more nuanced than that in many ways, but it's like, go to uni if you're clear about what you're doing and you can see a pathway.
Like a doctor, or you want to be a vet or
a teacher, or in nursing, or this very specific like pathways that are available, accountancy, law, like there's so many.
Apprenticeships for accountants now.
Well, exactly. Yeah. And I think what's challenging now is the amount of debt that you come out with. It's like, it's such a uncomfortable and not necessarily a beneficial way to start your life as a young person, particularly in the economic climate as it is now.
Yeah.
And so you've got apprenticeships. One of our students, again, staying on this sidetrack, really bright girl, I'm still in touch with now, and she was offered, she did 4 A-levels, she did exceptionally well. I can't remember exactly what she got, but let's just say it was A's and A stars in her A-levels. She was awash with offers. She could have gone anywhere she wanted to read, and I think she was reading physics, and she chose not to do that, and instead she went the apprenticeship route. Now she had very high grades, so she's had, again, options there, but I don't think you have to go to uni now. I think that juggernaut, that express train and that juggernaut that came in under Tony Blair, I think it's moved on now.
Yeah, the lady I had an interview before yourself. She mentioned, and I don't know the exact statistics, but graduate roles are being cut back.
Gosh, yeah, I can imagine.
So there's actually less of them.
Yeah.
And now the interest rates for debt has been cut down. The government have stepped in a little bit, but it doesn't seem fair to me that somebody who has a parent who can pay for it outright compared to somebody who basically will have to go into debt to do that, will pay 3 or 4 times more because of the interest than somebody who's had a parent pay for it outright. How is that fair? That to me is like a wealth gap that's I think just not right. And for women, if you take maternity leave and then your loan, your student loan pauses, but the interest rate still continue, the interest is still chargeable whilst you're off on maternity. So there's so many things I just think that are just not right about the system. Complete sidetrack. I wasn't expecting to go down that road, but I just thought it was a really prudent question to ask you based on why also about was that self-worth, where do we start, what do we do, how do we go about things? So taking us back to uni, you were no longer the posh kid.
No, so it was a really interesting, complete flip. So I went from suddenly being the posh kid to then not being the posh kid to being one of the least posh people in this environment. So because I was now in university with people with yachts and who holidayed in one of their multi-homes, a family lived abroad or whose parents had flats in central London, who'd been to some of the top schools in the country, if not coming from abroad, very wealthy families. And so I sort of went from, financially a big fish in a small pond to a very small fish in a very big pond, royalty going to the the college next door and things like that. And it was an incredible experience because of that. Yeah. And suddenly realising that and as you can hear probably in some of my language around this, it's I then felt the difference then. It was very evident to me, and it became evident in some of the conversations I was having, the opportunities that were around, the things that we were doing. It's interesting to me, and I think this is what we do as humans. Most, not all, but most of my really good friends that I've come out of Oxford with are also state school kids. And I think that's really fascinating, that you kind of, you stick with what you know.
Yeah, interesting. I think because there's this, I noticed this with my daughter. She went to a state primary, but a private school secondary, because I didn't even ask her to do the 11 plus, and I knew I'd have to drag her through secondary school. And if she went to a big state school, she would hide, and she would just get up to all kinds of mischief. And we have a private school that's quite a small private school, but does secondary as well in our village. So she wouldn't be able to go very far. She wouldn't get away with much, and she wouldn't be able to hide. And so that's why we sent her there, and I managed to drag her through to her GCSEs, because she just wasn't in. She's just not one for the state system and for education system. And she tried her best, but the difference. I said, right, now you're going to go to college, and you're going to go to the state college down the road in a Medway town, which there's good and bad in every area. And so I knew, I said, you're going to meet a lot of different people now, but they've become really, she got on with the people she went to college with more so than the people she went to private school with. And she has still got 2 friends that she's still in contact with, but that's it. And I think she felt a bit alienated because it wasn't that same financial makeup. She was walking around in let's just say a market kind of bag, or a cheap knockoff of some description, because I personally don't believe in spending about £400 or £500 on a handbag for a 13-year-old to drag around on the ground. But other parents did, and they were walking around with, Louis Vuitton handbags and Michael Kors bags, and they had the latest iPhone. And I'm not judging those people for that decision, but that disparity, she noticed it. And then she went to the college and she was the posh girl.
Right.
And I think there's something around like hierarchy or around ego around all of that, where maybe she felt more comfortable because she felt, and I don't want to put words into her mouth, but she didn't feel like the lesser of the two evils. She felt like she was a higher, that sounds really like, I'm not saying that in an egotistical way, but I think she didn't feel like the smaller dog, if you like.
I think it comes down to values. Like, that's how I look at it now. Because I'd say I'm not friends exclusively with kids from state school, but we had at that young age, because we were 18, I'd only just turned 18 when I went to Oxford. You're still forming who you are.
Yeah.
And so was everyone around me. And so it makes sense that you pull to people who are you identify with. It's like, it makes complete sense. And then as time has gone on, I really see it's like, what are you valuing? What are your struggles? What can you relate to? What are you connecting to people with, or connecting with people about? And underlying all of that is the values that you hold. And so that's what has become really important, and that's what I see. That's certainly one of the takeaways that I had from that time, and so something that I've kind of keep reflecting on as life has continued.
Evolved since then.
Yeah.
And so then it came to like the what you call the milk rounds. I think you referred to them
Yeah.
and actually the previous lady mentioned the website. I think there's a website called the Milk Round.
I think there probably is. Yeah.
But for you at the time, it wasn't a website. I think it was actually people that actually physically came to Oxford and pitched for the graduate jobs. So just talk to me about that and how that landed for you.
So my experience of it is that I didn't have any experience of it through a choice that I look back that I made. And that choice, I think, came from looking back from, this isn't for me. This isn't for someone like me. That's for everyone else. So these big law firms and big tax firms, the kind of, I think they're called like the big five, isn't it? Like KPMG, Ernst & Young, all these huge brands, they came round and would put on these evenings where current graduates would come round, would be present, do a presentation. There'd be free drinks, free food, and you were invited to go along and chat to them and watch this presentation and learn about what it's like to go on a graduate training scheme with them. And most of my friends, even if they weren't particularly interested in those careers, went to these things because, hey, free drinks, right? But even with that offer, I still didn't go. I completely opted out. I didn't go to one. And I just closed the door on that even being an opportunity for me. And I'm perplexed now as to why. My guess is that I was scared, intimidated, didn't really know what it was, I think. I'm going to be honest, it's not the kind of conversation we were having at home. We weren't talking about openly sitting around the table, tax, investing, law. It was a little bit of like inverse snobbery kind of going on of like, ironically, that's what posh people do. Well, eye rolling like, that's what those kind of people do.
I can completely relate to that. Same with my dad. My dad's working class, so I was brought up in a council house. And money was never talked about. Bank accounts. So the fact I was working in a bank at 19 is like, how did that happen?
Right.
And that's because I was a temp. I got made redundant from my main job, and then I temped for 6 months, and my last temping job was in a bank. Right. Which is a whole story in itself because it was hilarious. I literally had like a drawer full of money, about 100, like it must have been about 50, 60,000. Never seen that much money in all my life. And so working in a bank was like completely off my radar. But for my dad, I always wanted to horse ride, and I wanted horse riding lessons. And my dad, I was like, that's for posh people. There was very much just like this, I don't know, because where it's very much working class, it was almost like a judgment on that other class of people.
Right.
So I get what you're saying.
But what's the irony is, right, that my dad went to Gordonston, right? So he went to a very, like, one of the public schools, but he went there on a scholarship because his dad was in the Navy. And my mum has also come from like a entrepreneurial background. Like her father worked for himself, and I'm pretty sure he worked for selling John Deere tractors. He did very well for himself, right? So and my mum's very open now about finances and talking about them. But I think back then she was so busy being a mum and running the household, and then also being involved in my dad's business. I just think, raising 3 kids, we just there was this like background narrative, like akin to what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
If you're somebody that is not sure what to do with their finances, maybe you're working and you're not sure what to do with the bonuses you've got at work, or maybe you started a business and you've got profits and you're not sure what you should be doing to enable you to A, pay yourself more, or B, potentially retire earlier. Maybe you're somebody that's thinking about, do I overpay on the mortgage? You've received some inheritance. You've got lots of questions around your finances and what to do next. Then check out Evolution Financial Planning, who are regulated independent financial advisors and financial planners that can help you make some of those big decisions in life. I don't think you realise it at the time, do you?
No, it's all innocent, and I think that's the thing. It's all innocent.
It's like this undercurrent that's just part of our subconscious that we don't really even realise that's there in the first place.
Yeah.
So I can understand what you mean, and it's something you can beat yourself up about, I imagine. Like, you're thinking, well, why did I not go and do that?
I look at it, I'm like, what was that about? And then I remember how young I was, and that's a bit naive, you know.
Yeah, I look at my daughter now, she's 18, and I had in my head as soon as she turned 18 that she miraculously would become this perfect adult human being. And
really mature.
Yeah, like she'd just change overnight.
Yeah.
And within a week of her being 18, she said, Mum, you do know, and my husband as well, that like, Dad, Mum, you do know that, you know, I was only 18 a week ago, and actually just because that one day ticked in doesn't actually make any difference. I think in my head I just thought, well, you're an adult now.
Right.
You know, that was the kind of generation I was brought up in. You know, I moved out at 19.
Right.
You know?
It's different,
the generation
isn't it?
is, I think, also taking longer to grow up because they're more in cotton wool than what maybe I was. So you didn't go. It wasn't for me.
It wasn't for me.
And what happened after you? But you were working through that time.
So the crazy thing is, so I was never shied away from having a job, and there's this. I can't remember if we actually signed something or not, but there's definitely a conversation that is had that might be called an agreement or a contract that you have when you go to Oxford, that you're not going to work during term time.
Yeah, they do. For some big main unis, they do say that. Yeah,
and especially at Oxford, it's 3 short terms of 8 weeks, as it was then. So they're really intense. You're producing 3 essays every 2 weeks. That's on my course. That's what we were doing. So you get exceptionally. It's one of the reasons you're in demand at the end of it, because you're so good at critically thinking under pressure at speed, right? And so there isn't much time to have a job, but I stayed up in Oxford during the holidays, and I needed to work. I wanted to work. And so I took myself off to Tesco's, and I also worked in a pub at various points as well through the term. I tested it out. It didn't last more than 1 term, but I did work. So, you know, alongside this, like, oh, that's not for me, but this work over here, I'll do that. So
I work in Tesco's,
and I'll work in the pub.
I won't work for like KPMG.
But I'm not going to go and, you know, right. So, and I look at that now, and, you know, as you opened, I'm like, okay, was this a self-worth thing? I mean, I don't know. I couldn't have pulled that apart then, but I wonder if that was the seeds of, working hard looks like this and not like that. There was some sort of choosing going on at that quite young age.
Understand that. Yeah, definitely. You know, like me working for a bank, I would never have envisaged that. That just happened.
Yeah.
I would never have. I'd only just opened my. I didn't even open my bank account. My dad did it for me at 18. You know, I didn't know what I was doing. The fact I was working in a bank was ridiculous. Obviously, things from there went well because I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. But you sometimes I don't think you envisage it.
Yeah.
you know, and I think that was down to the narrative. For me, it was because I wasn't actually clever and I wasn't smart. And that was massively wrapped up in my self-worth. That massively affected who I was as a person and how I people please and, you know, all of that. It's all wrapped up in each other.
Yeah.
So after you've finished all successful at uni.
Yeah.
And then what happened after that?
So
you'd think
like you come out. And so honestly, I really remember it really distinctly that summer after I graduated, I've sort of felt like, ta-da, okay, I've got my degree, I've got my 2-1 from Oxford, and where's my job?
Yeah,
and
I
was applying for these jobs and I wasn't getting anywhere. I wasn't getting anything. And it sort of, I remember it dawning on me like, oh, I haven't got any proper work. I haven't got any work experience. And I remember going to see some recruitment consultants, right? And just trying to get some part-time work. And all of them were just like, but you've got no experience. And I was staying with a friend in her parents' friend's house in London, right? So come and stay with me, we'll figure it all out. And she'd had a job before, she'd taken a year out, had a job before she'd gone to Oxford. So she had a CV with some actual experience on it. So she could get some temp work while she was figuring out what she wanted to do and applying for the job she really wanted. And I had Tesco's and a pub and BHS from when I was a kid. And I was like, oh, I see. Oh, I see. That milk round thing, that's what that was about. That would have got me into some kind of work experience, or that could have got me doing a summer internship or something and all this. And when I looked back, a lot of my friends, including my state school friends, had found a way to make that work. Meanwhile, I'd been doing other things, working, you know, and so I just kind of missed the boat. I just didn't get the memo, or my eyes weren't open to it, is probably more likely.
Yeah.
So I came out and felt arrogantly that the world owed me a job and it wasn't there. So then I started at the bottom, finally got some temp work, filing.
That was my first job at 16. And
it's everyone's job at some point, right?
Yeah.
Everyone has to do some
I just feel that's a bit unfair, considering you went and did your A-level, got A-stars, we did a 2-1 at Oxford.
But no experience. And so they're all like, you may be great, but compared to all the people that have done all this office experience, who we can just chuck in and they'll go and know how to turn on the computer and know what Word is, you know, and like be able to manage this. It all worked out in the end, but it was a very humbling experience.
So you left the country?
So I decided I'm out of it. So I ended up after then the power of my network came in. So I ended up working at the Press Association. I got a temp job there, ended up staying there, which is basically the British equivalent to Reuters. It was then. I don't know if it's still in that position now. They'd push out the news to all the news outlets and decide basically what's the number one news story. And one of my then bosses went and worked at an advertising company. And when a marketing job came up there, marketing assistant, he said, you need to apply for this. And he basically got me into the interview. And then I was in this job. The power of network. And that was when I started realising this is what this networking thing is. This is what this looks like. This is how this... And luckily, for me, I'm brilliant at relationships. So that's always been one of my strengths. So I've always fostered my networks in that way. While I was there, I won a holiday to Brazil. And
how did you win a holiday?
So Selfridges had a Brazil month.
Right.
Went in there, probably hungover, went in, filled out a postcard, drew all over the back of it some sort of design, popped it in, and sort of a month later got a phone call saying, oh, you've won.
Amazing.
So it was that.
Do you believe in serendipitous kind of moments like that?
I do now, yeah. Having had I don't know if it's serendipitous, it's more like life's going to give you opportunities and are you going to take them or not?
Yeah. Do you think it's all drawn out already for you?
Yes.
Yeah.
In many ways.
Like what's going to happen next week is going to happen next week.
You're going to be pulled there in one way or the other. I do.
Do you think sliding, like the film Sliding Doors? Do you think that you could go one way or the other? Do you think Paradise universes or? but each one is already, every equation is already drawn out.
That's kind of how I feel about it. I just feel that there's something at play that's much bigger than us.
Yeah.
And that fills me with sort of quite joy, and it takes off a lot of the pressure, actually. Not make silly decisions. I still tap into my own wisdom, what makes sense. But life's going to unfold anyway. We can all but surrender to what life gives us. And the more we surrender to it, like that the Brazil trip, I could have not gone, or I could have just gone and done the trip and that was it. But I did the trip. And my friend and I spoke before, and we were both unhappy in London. We're like, let's go travelling.
And you got a free holiday.
And we got a free holiday, and then we went travelling together afterwards.
Yeah.
So we could have not created that.
The milk round. Maybe you wasn't meant to work at KPMG or whoever.
Well, this is it. So I look back at the decisions that I made, and they were choices I made when I was young. And as I said earlier, it's like they were very innocent. I don't look at myself with contempt or how ridiculous or like, eye rolling. I sort of look at myself like I was young. I made decisions that made sense at the time. I wouldn't make them now. I wouldn't advise someone to do it now necessarily. Yeah. But I've come good, and I've been on such a journey because of that, because of all these experiences, and had to discover, okay, well, who am I then? What am I interested in? Because I decided it wasn't all that.
Yeah.
So what was it?
What is it?
What is it that lights me up? Because it wasn't finances and working in law, and it still isn't actually. But there's other things. I work with people who work in finance. I work with clients who work in law. It's people, really.
Yeah, it sounds like it when you're talking about your network, and relationships. That's what that all is all around, really. Yeah. So you went to Brazil. You worked out there.
So I ended up. I had a whole. There's a period of time I put myself in Spanish school, learnt Spanish because I hated languages at school, and had a whole story that I'm terrible at languages. And I remember being with. I met an older lady she felt very old to me then, because I was 26, and she was about 65, and she was learning her 5th language. And I remember meeting her and being astounded, like, wow. She's like, yeah, I've just started this week, put myself in Spanish school. I was like, oh my God, if you can do this, there is no reason why I can't. She was like, absolutely not. Why don't you join me? So my friend went off and volunteered in a zoo or an animal sanctuary, I think it was. And I put myself in Spanish school, 6 weeks, 4 hours a day, learnt Spanish from scratch. And that was an incredible shift in being, I have to say, because I went from someone who was like so much resistant, like, I can't do this, to like, oh my gosh,
I can do it.
I can communicate. Ended up staying out in South America for another 5 years in total off the back of that. Lived and worked over there.
Nice and cheap.
Worked as a tour guide for a British company in the end, and would take groups of tourists around. Worked in a school for a short period of time as well, teaching English.
How did that work with your self-worth? Like, how was you measuring yourself then?
So then it's a really interesting experience then. Financially, I was in a really great position because I was getting paid not a huge amount, but I was getting paid in pounds, which would go quite far in South America. Yeah. My self-worth, I started to realise I was really good at what I was doing as a tour guide because my tips were phenomenal, really good. And because of the relationship piece of how I was being with groups and leading them and supporting them, there was a lot of very informal therapy that was going on, which is basically someone would have people come on holiday and they bring their crises with them. Yeah. Everyone would be fine week 1. By week 2, everything's starting to get unpacked on the table. And if we were together for 3 weeks, I saw marriages sort of imploding, all sorts. And I became a very sound listening board, basically, for a lot of people. But that was for the benefit of the group, and the group would see that I was working quite hard. So I got incredible tips doing that job. So that saw me through. So it looked then, I felt like, I'm really good at this. But each time I had to start again. So I'd go through this kind of my self-worth, and I never quite knew how good I was. I was often doubting it because each time I'd have to start again.
Got it. But then you came back to the UK. What made you leave after 5 years?
I had to make a decision because I had a fun, footloose life, but I had friends in ports, and it was impossible to have a relationship. So I had lots of sort of informal partners in different countries. I could never say exactly when I was coming back. So yeah, it was great. But after a few years, I was like, I need a base.
Yeah, I need to settle down a little
Just
bit.
put some roots down, somewhere to be able to unpack my bag
and
a
you
bit.
ended up back at the village that you started at.
Right, yeah. So I came back to London originally and worked in London, and then ended up got back together with my boyfriend from when I was 18.
Okay.
So he's from my town. Full circle moment.
Travelled the world,
right?
But end up with the boyfriend from
before, exactly, from before all of it. And he was from Salisbury, where I grew up, and so he came. We met in London and lived in London together, and eventually had children. And we're like, right, let's go back. So that's where we are now.
So up till this point, how has your self-worth evolved from the girl that went to state school through to Oxford? Like, where was you sitting in terms of pre-children, in terms of your self-worth and what you thought about the value of what you're earning?
I think when it really hit me that there was something going on, that I was on I was living out of an operating system and living into an identity that was unconscious, that I wasn't aware of, was when I was teaching. So when I was living in London, I went into teaching and taught Spanish. I was passionate about taking the language in. And I didn't even think about the salary, really. I was looking at, this will be great for having a family. That was my thinking at that point, because I was about 30. And I thought, I'd love to have children. Then I met my now husband, and we did have children. And it was when, obviously having children, there's costs involved, and particularly in London, and then everything's going out for childcare, and there was just never any money for me, like, ever. And also being the operating system that I was on was in an industry that like valued putting everyone else first. Like, teaching kind of thrives a little bit off that. It can thrive, not for everyone, but it certainly did for me. It fed that narrative of, here's all these other children that need my support and that need to come first. So my self-worth was really, really low, because there was almost so much to do. And I was operating from like, I'm not enough, and I'm never going to, the only way I can be enough is if I work really, really hard, like almost like that pub Tesco thing, this manual kind of show up, do these long hours. There's always something to do. And the salary could never really reflect that. And the emotional labour that goes into being with and holding what children and teachers and families, parents bring into the teaching environment. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And the finances, I was working on a London salary, but financially it could never be enough to fill that. You could have paid me double what I was earning, and it wouldn't have been enough to fill the place that I was coming from, because I was trying to fill my self-worth, the whole of it. I think it was like a hole. You can't shovel fast enough. You could never do enough to fill that up. So yeah, there was definitely an inverse relationship.
What impact did that have on you or your relationships with people around you?
It really impacted me, because I was always last. I didn't even feature on my list. So I've had very little time for myself. Friends, family they just stopped contacting me. They knew not to contact me during term time. I think that's kind of normal. If you've got teachers in your life, it is a very busy, intense job. But it meant it was very strained with me and my partner. And then when I had children, I was with them and would prioritise them, but I wasn't mentally with them. Like, mentally, I was
slightly somewhere else.
I had half an eye on the pile of Spanish books that I needed to mark for the Monday morning.
So you didn't go back, do a hybrid role or flexible?
No, I went back 4 days a week.
Right.
So I was promoted to head of sixth form, and I did that 4 days a week. So I was teaching less.
Yeah.
So delivering that stuff less, had less of that kind of thing. But pastorally,
More responsibility.
anything could happen. Anything could happen. Stuff does happen. It's a group of like young people living in
16,
central
17-year-old,
London.
yeah.
Like stuff happens all the time.
But did that, from a self-worth, not just from a monetary perspective, but the promotion, did that help?
It's really interesting because I was coming from like almost, and I can see it now, but I couldn't see it at the time. All I ever really heard was my own doubts and my own insecurities. So everyone else, I've always done well in work. I've often been promoted. I've often got jobs. It's unusual for me not to have got a job, unless I've very obviously messed up in an interview, which I have done as well. But generally, I've often been successful and been rewarded. So I was often being rewarded for this way of being, this how I worked, as if I need to do everything and work really long hours. It was just like, that's what looked like was being rewarded. So even though I got the promotion, it wasn't like, oh, now I've arrived. It was like,
right,
okay,
next.
What's the next thing? Okay, now there's all this other stuff that needs doing. So,
where do you think that work hard, do you think that's just part of that kind of working or middle class, that we're just inbred to work hard? Or do you think it's a male female thing where as females we feel like we've got to work harder to prove ourselves? Or
no, I don't think it's a male female thing, because now I'm in as a coach, I'm working with men. Half my clients are men, and they have this same narrative going on. I think for a lot of people, work equals hard. Work is hard, and to be successful, I have to work hard. I think that's the kind of...
Do you think that's true?
No, I don't think that's true, but that is the narrative that people live into.
But who do you think has the privilege to know and feel that's not true?
Good question. What I've seen is that we can discover it ourselves, and as my children are going through the educational system, having now going through it with them and having been on the other side of it, I think it's a big, I could point the finger at how education is set up.
Yeah, I'd agree
massively.
With you. Yeah.
It's a lot of it's carrot and stick. You're examined within an inch of your life. You decide, and people internally decide whether you're a failure or not. At a very young age. Look how much we test our children.
Yeah, I agree.
So I'd say, schooling has the educational system as it's set up currently has a lot to answer for this narrative.
I totally agree. And with my children, even my 18-year-old, as much as my husband says, you've got to work hard, and he's very much on that narrative, but we did work hard. And there's a video going around on YouTube or somewhere or other, where it's like, no, in your 20s and 30s, you do have to work hard so that you get yourself to a point or a level that when you're in your 40s and 50s, you can actually take a little bit of a step back and enjoy that kind of positioning that you've put yourself in. Yeah. So like my example, starting the business is hard work. I've got over 100 clients. I look after millions of pounds of client money. You don't get that level of clients when I haven't bought a client bank. I haven't taken over any practice. That takes time and effort. You don't sit there doing nothing and achieve that. So there was hard work put into that. However, now I'm in a position that I can work part-time and I can earn good hours because I've got the infrastructure and the team around me to support that business.
Right.
And that takes time to achieve that. My husband, he's an IT director. But back when my daughter was born, he was out the house at 7 a.m. and back at 7 p.m. He wasn't at a senior level. He's put the hours in, got to a more senior level, and he now has a lot more autonomy as to his work, his when he works and when he doesn't work. So I think there is a practical part of, like, you do have to work hard, but I think there's a level where at some point in our heads we seem to push it too far, and it then starts to seep into self-worth, and we don't then set the boundaries, and we don't put the right things in place for for us to recognise. I say it with my husband, like, you need to start recognising this shift in your body.
Right.
Because when that shift happens, that's when you stop.
Yeah.
You don't just keep burning through it.
Right.
And I've had to recognise that since I've become perimenopausal. Before that, I didn't really need to have to worry about it. I could manage. It was okay. I was like a machine. But now I will burn out very quickly, very easily, if I don't recognise that shift in my body to a point where, you know, I'd have to cancel days like today.
Yeah.
You know, I'd have to, when it first started happening, I had to reduce the amount of hours that I did. I had to cancel appointments. I had to make sure I had lunch booked in every day. I had to be methodical about my timing before I didn't. That's my viewpoint. I mean, I'm not saying everyone needs to agree with it, but I think we have to be quite careful with the younger generation removing work ethic and resilience. Because if we do that too much and say, no, you don't have to work hard at all, then actually... but I do think it's about having the right skill set and pointing them in the right direction for something that will be right for their, you know, not... I see a lot of parents pushing tutors and pushing the 11 plus and pushing grammar school and pushing A levels, and they're basically projecting their own expectations or projecting what they didn't achieve themselves onto their children. Yeah. And for my kids, I just always said, if you're happy and you're doing what you love, then that's absolutely fine. Just do your best, and I don't care what the tests say. I really don't care. So my little boy will have a times tables test in June. It's an Ofsted thing. They're timed. He's 9 years old, and he's expected to know all his times tables, and they're expected to answer them within, I think they have 20 seconds per question. Yeah,
it's really quick.
And what's the point?
Right, ticking boxes. I know.
What's the point? You know, you haven't even got, like, we're not talking just phones or calculators now. We're talking AI that you could ask very complex questions around measurements, around all kinds of things that you could literally tell the answer in less than 30 seconds. So what's the point in putting kids through that? So yeah, but I agree with you that feeding that hard work narrative comes into, I think, at that schooling system and pushing them in ways that I don't think's healthy. And I hear far too many children of friends that are mentally not in a good space because of it.
The conversation really we probably should be having is, what's the future of education in this country?
I think that's yeah. I would completely change all of it, quite honestly. My friend of mine, one of my best friends, her little boy is diagnosed dyslexic and ADHD, and has had to leave the second primary school and is now home educated. And he has a tutor that's specialist that comes to the house. And the tutor said, we actually only probably need to do about 5 or 6 hours a week. Yeah. Because that's actually all they do. The rest of it is about indoctrinating and systemising. Right. And
for compliance.
Yeah.
And that's what, you know, and I guess the question that was going through my mind as you were talking is, we're saying, like, well, I think it was helpful to look at what does that actually mean to work hard. And working hard means being compliant to someone else's system. Yeah. A lot in this country.
We're going to pause there, and if you want to hear the rest of this conversation, then do subscribe, and then on Monday you'll be dropped this part 2. If you're listening at any other time, then skip on to the next episode, but also please do subscribe so that then you will find out about our next shows when they drop straight away. So stay tuned. Thank you for joining us today at Accelerating Your Wealth with your host, myself, Rebecca Robertson. I hope you enjoyed the show. Do subscribe and let us know in the comments any of your thoughts.